I had never seen the movie Blade Runner until now. Welcome to Retro Video Playback and to episode 1 of First Time Viewing, a series where I watch a movie I've never seen before and then talk about it. From 1982, Blade Runner stars Harrison Ford, who was right in the prime of Star Wars fame. Being an avid movie watcher, I always knew about Blade Runner, but all I knew was that it's a futuristic sci-fi movie and that it has a very devoted and loyal fan base. That's it. I didn't know anything about the plot. Before going any further, I want to remind viewers that taste in movies is all about subjectivity. Any opinion I'm about to express holds no weight over how you feel about something. I'm just here to have fun making a video, so while I encourage hearing your thoughts in the comments, let's make sure we keep things civilized. With that, I'll get into Blade Runner. So this all started really randomly when I stumbled across this copy of Blade Runner on Blu-ray at a local store for just $4. I thought, okay, I've never seen this movie, I've meant to watch it for a long time. Sure, I'll buy it. It wasn't until I took a closer look at it later on at home that I realized it has 5 discs containing 4 different versions of Blade Runner. Before committing to watching a specific version of the movie, knowing that there's a dedicated fan base for it, I turned to Reddit for some opinions, asking the Blade Runner subreddit and the Blu-ray subreddit which version I should watch for my very first time. Respondents overwhelmingly told me I should watch the Final Cut version. There were certainly other opinions and rationale sprinkled throughout, but by far I was being told to watch the Final Cut. So what did I do? I watched the Theatrical Cut. Yes, against the advice of the majority of Reddit users who were kind enough to offer their time in responding to my post, I watched the theatrical version of Blade Runner for my first viewing of the movie. I'm a very logical thinker, so my thinking was, the theatrical version of the movie was the first to be released, and that's what viewers would have originally seen back in 1982, so why should I do it differently? Here are my thoughts on the movie in order of how I experienced them during my first ever watch of Blade Runner. Honestly, the movie and I didn't get off to a great start. The opening scene where Leon is being tested to determine if he's a replicant is engaging enough, but I was quickly pulled out of the movie with the poor continuity of Leon going from a sitting position and then a moment later standing and shooting as though he was standing the whole time. A minor gripe, but I'll touch on some of the other continuity errors I noticed a bit later on when I get to them. As the movie moves along and we get our first look at the landscape of Los Angeles, I did very much like the visuals and the tone with the neon and the rain. Then there's the voiceover, which I was warned about by many Reddit users. When I saw those warnings, I thought, how bad could it be? But admittedly, it's pretty corny, or at least not well done. It seems that might be one of the main reasons people don't prefer the theatrical cut. I'm not opposed to voiceover. Done well, it can add a lot to a story. Scorsese's best movies have voiceover, and it's perfectly done there. But with Harrison Ford, you can just hear that he's reading a script, and it does not feel natural or like he doesn't care or something, which wouldn't be unusual for Harrison Ford. My first thought of the musical score was that I like it. It's very 80s, futuristic with the various strings and synth. But then some of the score doesn't feel thematically consistent with that, with this dreamy piano sound that was actually distracting me in many scenes in the movie. Then, I started zoning out after the introduction of Pris and Sebastian. I wasn't on my phone or anything, the movie just wasn't intriguing me at all and I couldn't pay attention. The fight scene with Zora is just bad acting. Harrison Ford flies backward after a noticeable delay after being punched, and then when he's being choked, it comes off almost as a joke. As I mentioned, the continuity throughout the movie isn't great. You've got blood suddenly appearing on Harrison Ford between shots in the scene where he's fighting Leon, Sebastian turning away on a close-up just for him to still be facing baddie on the further shot before he turns away again. And then even in the climax scenes of the movie where baddie's counting, he says 1, 2, then 3, 4, but then shortly after he repeats 4 when he says 4, 5, so they couldn't even keep his counting consistent.
4, 5. How to stay alive.
Throughout the third act of the movie, it stood out to me how little dialogue there was, which, for how I feel about the rest of the movie, is a good thing. I found the climax chase scene to be tense and enjoyable, but at a certain point it did feel like it ran a little long. It reminded me of the final chase in the original Friday the 13th, where after a little while it was just kind of like, okay, get on with it already. I really wanted to like Blade Runner. I think the concept is really interesting and the visuals of the movie are great, but for the most part, I just didn't find myself enjoying it. I can tell that it's a movie that for a lot of people, they primarily enjoy it because they saw it when it either first came out or they saw it earlier in life, like as a kid or a teenager, so there's this certain level of attachment. And whether you want to admit it or not, that causes you to see a movie through a certain kind of lens. I absolutely have movies that I have a bias for because of my attachment to them. Conversely, I'm seeing Blade Runner through my own tainted lens. The movie's over 40 years old, so I'm seeing it after I've seen countless modern movies that have improved upon visual effects and editing and storytelling and so on. But also, knowing how loved this movie is, I think my expectations were too high for it. And that's often a recipe for disaster, or at least disappointment. So that was my first viewing of Blade Runner, the theatrical cut. Not wanting to sell the movie short, about 2 weeks after watching the theatrical cut, next I watched the final cut. Getting into the final cut, immediately I enjoyed the slow build coming out of the opening credits, with the shot of 2019 Los Angeles and then approaching the structures that are reminiscent of Mayan pyramids that we see throughout the movie. Then the movie proceeds as I remember it from my first viewing. The key scenes were familiar and were fine, but like my first viewing, I just found myself having a hard time staying invested and interested. This happens with books sometimes too for me, where sometimes I'm digesting every word because the book is so interesting, while other books, I get to the bottom of a page and I realize I didn't take in any of it, and then I have to reread it. I know I'm going to get a ton of hate for saying anything bad about this movie, but the reality is that I just didn't enjoy my overall viewing of Blade Runner either time. Like I said, I think it's a movie whose primary fan base has a historical involvement and attachment to the movie. I'd be surprised to hear someone around my age, early 30s, coming into Blade Runner and loving it after one viewing, as opposed to someone who saw it earlier in life and has seen it many times over the years. I'm not saying Blade Runner is a bad movie. I certainly enjoyed some moments, and I like certain aspects like the theme, the visuals, and some of the musical score. But overall, the movie just didn't grab me, and in the end, it isn't for me. I'm glad I gave it a watch, but I don't know that I would watch it again. Thanks for watching Retro Video Playback.